Ava DuVernay, thank you for sitting down with Forbes for the 50 over 50.
So happy to be here.
You are a director, a writer, a producer, but above all, a storyteller. And I'd love to ask you, what is the power that you see in storytelling in 2024, in a moment when society is so divided and fractured?
Well, society is really just the stories that we tell each other about one another and about ourselves. That's what history is, that's what the news is. Journalism, our family histories, they're stories. And I think one of the things that I'm really interested in is making sure that different people are able to tell their stories, be heard, be seen, that we're actually embracing different perspectives, and allowing society to be built with these pillars that really move us towards narrative change, stories that include and embrace everyone, so that there's a sense of belonging, a sense of togetherness. And I think the storytelling, socially and culturally has tilted one way for far too long. And so it's really just about opening it up and making sure everyone has a say.
Speaking of narrative change, your film Origin is now streaming on Hulu, and you have said that it was really important to you to produce and release this movie before the 2024 election. So what impact do you want to have on November?
I won't say that I'm looking to have, an impact in terms of the outcome of the election. I just want people to be a lot more rigorous. I want to see more rigor in our conversations around the things that matter. I feel a general fatigue. I feel like people are exhausted with the onslaught of news, with the onslaught of misinformation, with kind of the tribalism. You're on this side, I'm on this side. And it's produced this kind of, I think there's a laziness, sometimes an apathy, folks really feeling very, very singular and kind of closed off in the way that they want to think. And so the goal of the film is to open us up, to expand a little bit, to ask us to look around, look outside of ourselves, and really see what that kind of closing down really does. It diminishes us as a culture, and it is going to affect our decision making as we come to the elections. So the goal was for the film to just kind of awaken, get us to see one another in a different way. And hopefully that contributes to different conversations and more healthy outcomes.
Have you heard from any moviegoers or audience members about how their perspective was changed after seeing Origin?
A lot of feedback. I mean, folks, one of the beautiful things about the films that I make, that I love and that I'm addicted to, is that I feel that they're in conversation with the audience. The audience is always telling me how they feel about it, either directly afterward or throughout, through their tears, through their comments, through social media, through people walking up to me in the airport. I'm constantly getting feedback on the pictures in ways that some of my other, counterparts who make films don't get to enjoy. They'll hear, oh, I like the film, but I'm actually hearing people telling me their family histories, intimate details about how they experienced the movie, and I'm hearing a lot about people learning new ideas, new ways to define their feelings, new ways to organize their thoughts around a lot of the challenges we're facing as a country.
Now, you also self-funded this film. You raised the $38 million necessary to make it. And I'm wondering if you could talk about the risks and the rewards of taking this approach in movie making.
Well, I didn't self-fund it. I wish I had an extra $38 million hanging around, but I did create the model that allowed us to go to like-minded individuals and philanthropic organizations and say, hey, let's come together and create a community model to finance this film as opposed to a studio model to finance the film. And it was the first time that had been done with a narrative film. You'd see that nonprofit organizations had given money and financing to some documentaries. They call it finishing funds. There had never been a film where all of the budget had come from nonprofits, philanthropic organizations, social impact investment, and I'm proud of the model that we put together, and it really worked.
Did it allow you any sort of extra creative control or freedom in making the movie compared to a traditional studio experience?
Yes, Origin was the most free I've ever been making a project since the early days when I was making $100,000, $50,000 projects on my own with my own money. Because once you start to learn how to make films and they become popular, you are in the studio system, in the streamer system, and they are your partners. And so it is a kind of collective decision making a lot of times in terms of what the final film or series will be. In this, I was really interested in being completely free in the storytelling without, having to kind of take notes from the studio. I knew what I wanted to say. It was very important for me to say it on a very specific timeline. And so these financing partners really gave me that freedom. They contributed to the film, and then they left me alone. That's the best kind of financing you can ask for. But they trusted what we were looking to do, and they believed in the vision of it. And it created an environment where we shot this film on 3 continents in 37 days. It was made by a Black woman-owned production company, my studio, Array, and it spans 400 years. It covers 7 time periods. To be able to do that independently outside the studio system is very rare. So I'm thrilled with the outcome and excited about doing it again.
You will do it again?
I'm addicted. Yeah, it's addictive. It's addictive to be free. It's addictive to, work with like-minded people on a project that means something to you. And so I won't say that every project I do will be like this, but I hope and I pray I get the chance to do it again.
It's interesting hearing you talk about your message, because I've heard you say before that you care about the craft of movie making, but it's important ultimately for people to hear the story. It doesn't matter if they're watching it on a plane or on their phone. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I get some criticism for that. I don't know why. I think, it comes from, I grew up in Compton, California, where there is no movie theater there. So I really understand what cinema segregation is. I don't think a lot of people understand that easy access to films is not something that everyone enjoys. It's not a privilege that everyone has. And so to diminish the idea of seeing a foreign film or seeing a film that you can't get your hands on a plane or, on a laptop or in a community screening projected on a wall, I have no problems with any of those. I'm really interested in you having the opportunity to see the story in whatever way it can be presented to you. And everyone does not have the good fortune of being able to go to the IMAX on the corner. And so I think, we get into a place where there's a little bit of snobbery about how things are being seen, and it's unfortunate. But I think overall, some of the, most of us are watching films, classic films on a television, classic films on a laptop, on a DVD, back in the day on a video cassette. And so for me, the form is not as important as the access. Now, do I want it to be seen with my full mix, sound mix, and the pristine picture and all of the things that we've worked so hard to make sure are offered to film lovers? Absolutely. But it's not always possible, and that's okay.
Now, you referenced your early days of filmmaking and the true self-funding, not just the philanthropic model. Would you recommend that to burgeoning filmmakers today?
I would. And when I started making films, there was not as didn't have as much access to technology that makes the process so much easier. We had to, figure out a way to, get an Avid to edit. Now you can edit on your laptop. We had to get really sophisticated cameras and figure out how we could beg, borrow to get these cameras. Now, by hook or crook, you could make it on your phone. I've seen some beautiful feature films made on iPhone. And so there are so many tools, so much technology now that allows people to express themselves and to embrace the craft of filmmaking. That's why I really think that we should, kind of take off all of these kind of elitist, barriers to entry. The technology is there that allows, anyone to be able to express themselves, and I think that's something that we should embrace and invite.
Now, Melinda Gates was one of your backers on Origin, correct?
She was.
And she recently announced a $1 billion commitment to advancing gender equity. A number of organizations and individuals were named as part of the beneficiaries, and your name was on her website.
Yeah.
What do you plan to do with her support?
Well, let me just say, I'm not a beneficiary. I am, so the announcement, which was, it was, I think hard for some people to decipher, is I'm one of a group of women that she chose to give away the money. So each of these women got a large amount of money, $20 million. And she said, go give it away and do good.
So you have 20 million to give.
I have 20 million to give. And it's an extraordinary honor to be entrusted with that. So it's the journey of identifying organizations, individuals that are global, that benefit women and girls and their wellness.
Are you looking within filmmaking and to
All over.
All over.
Yeah, all over.
That's incredible.
It's a big wide world out there.
It-
Sometimes it's going to take some time to really watch and learn and meet and travel, and hopefully do good with what she has really given so many of us the opportunity to share.
What do you think about that model of philanthropy?
I think it's extraordinary. I mean, there's one thing to say, these are the people that I deem worthy or the places that I deem worthy, but then to say, you're interesting, you come from a different background, you may have different concerns or different interests, or you may see something from a different way. You give this piece of it. I mean, what an extraordinary thing. So I kind of feel like a kid in the candy store. There are so many challenges. There's so many people that need help. There's so many organizations that are doing good work that just need a bit of a leg up. There are too many. And so it will be quite a journey and an adventure to try to identify the ones that we might be able to help.
Now, you famously did not pick up a camera until the age of 32, and you have said that your story, your career, your journey is as much about race and gender as it is about age. I want to ask you about the courage it took to pick up the camera at 32. Can you take us back? What were you thinking and feeling at that moment to make that big change?
Yeah, 32. I mean, right now I'm 51, so 32 sounds like a young chickadee. But at the time, at 32, most people are pretty set in what they're going to do. They've been doing it for probably about 10 years or so, and that was the case for me. I had a very beautiful career as a publicist in the entertainment industry. I marketed and I publicized and I promoted films and television shows, and I loved it. I had always wanted to be around it. But as I was on these sets, I started to see these guys directing, and I was thinking, he should move the camera. Why doesn't he tell her this? Do they see that thread hanging on the thing? Like I was seeing things, and I was starting to think about story, and I was wishing that I was directing. And one day I thought, well, why don't I try? And so it was really progressive. It was really not a decision that I made, and I quit my job that day. One of the things that I tell people when they're looking to make a change or pursue something new is do it slowly. Slowly but surely. It doesn't have to be all one day. You drop your job and you become the thing. I was a weekend warrior. I was writing scripts on weekends. I was doing things on vacations. I was taking time, before work, after work, to read, to take classes, and just slowly making my way towards the dream until I realized that the making your way towards it is the dream. That's the best part, is the journey, the steps. And so I just really had a beautiful time in kind of, becoming a filmmaker, and I don't discount that time. That time was really an extraordinary time when it was all being unveiled and I was walking towards it.
It sounds like you were a sponge, and you really were a student when you were on set in your prior job. Do you think that was part of what led to your success, was kind of observing as you went versus the traditional path of going to school or starting when you're 10 years old with the camera on your shoulder?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I did have the benefit of being on sets and being able to observe filmmakers. Now, I never saw a woman direct, and I only saw one Black person direct. But I think being a crew member, that long scroll of names that you see at the end of the movie that most people walk out for, don't walk out, that long list of people, I was one of those people. And, when you are a crew member, you are on sets, you are part of the filmmaking process. And so I was observing, I was watching, I was, taking in every day and trying to kind of put the puzzle pieces together so that when I started to have my own sets and be the director and leader of my own crews, I felt very comfortable in that space. And so that's one of the things. You just want to have proximity around whatever you want to do. And sometimes it's hard to gain that access. But I think being close to it, it rubs off on you, and it's a good entry level way to make your way towards your dreams. Just get close to it, however you can.
Now, we are here for the 50 over 50. You mentioned you are 51.
When does this come out?
August 1st, so you won't have
I'll still be 51.
You'll still be 51 when this comes out.
Thank you. Thank you for knowing that.
I did look up your birthday.
Okay.
We have to confirm that everyone is over 50.
Oh, wow.
There are some people who fudge their
trying to sneak into the 50 over 50?
It's a cool club of people. You guys are accomplishing a lot.
The reason why I think this is extraordinary is because when I was young, I always wanted to be in that 30 under 30. I always wanted to be in it, and I never was. And I thought, oh, my chance to be in one of those cool things has passed. But look at me now. I'm 50 over 50. It's fantastic.
It's not too late.
It's not too late.
So I want to ask, is your age an advantage or disadvantage in your line of work?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I think it's an advantage because I started late. So age really didn't play a part in the way that I kind of metabolized or calculated the value of what I was doing. I mean, I jumped in, a good 7 to 8 years behind most of my counterparts who had either gone to film school as college students or who had picked up a camera when they were a kid and were always shooting. So I started late, and I never really accepted the fact that age would hinder me.
When you were in your 20s and 30s, did you ever imagine your career over the age of 50?
I thought I would be a publicist. I never imagined, just when I said that I got emotional, I never imagined or fathomed what I'm doing now. There was no one that I could look to who was doing what I'm doing now, and I've only been making films for 12 years. There was no Black woman filmmaker who had a consistent, successful career who was making work every year. There were women who had made films, Black women who had made gorgeous, gorgeous films. There would be long stretches of time between when they could get the next film made. And it was always this uphill battle. And so I would look at filmmakers, Spike Lee most prominently, who was working in film, television, music video, commercial, documentary, moving all over the place. And I thought, oh, could a woman do that? Could a Black woman do that? And so I didn't imagine it, not because I didn't see it. It just was never anything that I thought was even possible. So my life every day is a marvel to me. I mean, truly, it's revelatory. I'm walking around inside of a dream, and I know that people are watching me, and the hope is that you're able to, or someone is able to see what I'm doing and feel like, oh yeah, I can do that. In a way that I didn't have. Now, there were Black women who had made incredible films, and I stand on their shoulders, and I want to be really clear about that. But one of the things that, regrettably they didn't have was consistent architecture of support around them so that they could make what they wanted, how they wanted, when they wanted, and where they wanted. And blessedly, I get to do that.
You own your production company, you own Array, you own the ground that it lives on, correct?
Yes, I own the campus.
Can you talk about what that means to you and what that does for your work to have that ownership?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I think there's something about space and owning the space. I always looked at Oprah Winfrey's Harpo Studios. She had a whole city block in Chicago. J.J. Abrams has a studio called Bad Robot. Where he owns his buildings. Haile Gerima, legendary Ethiopian filmmaker who's my mentor, has a bookstore and cafe with his editing room in the basement in Washington, D.C. called Sankofa. And these spaces become what Mr. Gerima calls liberated territory. These are spaces where you can truly be free, where you do not have to pass through a studio lot and hope that you're always in the good graces of the corporate entity that allows you to rent space on their campus. I have my own campus, and that space is mine, and that it is ours, and it is free, and it is made in our likeness, and it is what we want it to be. And there's something about making work in a free space like that that I think embeds itself in the image, in the frames. And I can't believe that we have this space, and we may not always have it, but we have it now, and we're embracing it, and we're making beautiful things there, and we're convening people. We have a theater in the space, so we're showing films, we're sharing films free for the community. It's just, it's a dreamy spot. So I'm really thrilled about it.
What's your advice to women in their 20s and 30s who feel like they either have to rush to fit in all of their accomplishments because of a clock that's ticking in their head, or they might feel like it's too late to make a change?
That just makes me sad when you say someone might feel like it's too late to make a change. We always hear the adage, it's never too late, but truly it is about your decision. You decide when it's too late. You decide when you don't want to try anymore. You decide when you're going to lean in a little bit. You decide how you want to be in the world each day when you wake up. You are the director of your life. You call action in the morning when you wake up. You decide. And so many of us, feel like we don't have the privilege of being the captain of our own destiny. You might have children, you might have economic or financial constraints. There might be all kinds of expectations that you feel you can't break through, but no one should be able to get in here, And if you can't do it on Tuesday, then maybe you'll do it on Thursday. And if you can't do it on Thursday, then maybe you'll do it on Sunday. And if you can't walk all the way across the room, maybe you just take one step. And then next day you take another step. But you decide how far you can go. No one else does. And the more that we realize that, the more you understand that there is no time, except the time that you decide to give yourself.
In 2021, you spoke at the Forbes Power Women Summit about what it took to make that change, and you said, quote, you had to ask yourself, can you change your mind about who you are and what you want to do later in the game? So now, a few years later, I want to ask you, what have you changed your mind about, if anything, recently?
I've changed my mind about a lot of things. I've changed my mind about the way that I want to work within the studio system. There was a time where I really wanted to be in that world. Now I want to be a little hybrid. I want to have one foot in, one foot out. I've changed my mind about the kinds of films that I want to make. I really am interested now in doing something that's wrapped in a genre, where I want to do romance, I want to do thriller, I want to do a mystery. And I still wanted to say something within those films. I think all of my films, I'm trying to express something, I'm trying to say something, I'm trying to kind of be additive to the world. I'm trying to comment on aspects of injustice that should be corrected and that we should pay attention to. But I'm interested in doing that inside of genre where it's kind of, oh, that was a love story, but it had this in it, or it was a thriller, but it was this. Imagine a Jason Bourne of justice. I don't know. Maybe it could be, who knows? But just to play with different forms. And so that's something new. And I think, you surprise yourself when you stay open, and you will find that almost every day there's a new idea, or you're being led, or your interests go in a different direction, and not to be afraid of that, to lean into it.
I think you've shown such drive over the course of your career, and I wonder, where does that drive come from, do you think?
I don't know. My grandmother always said, if you're bored, you're boring. Everyone's got a story. There's always something to learn in every moment. I feel like I'm so stimulated by everything that's going on around me in such a great way. Life is just a spectacle. Everywhere you look, there's something happening. How can you not be inspired by that? How can you not want to be a part of that? How can you not want to just, wake up and embrace life and see what the day has for you? And so, I get to, as an artist, express that through my work, but everyone's expressing that through their relationships, through their interactions, and I think that drives me, is what will life have in store for me today, and how can I contribute to it? And my drive really just comes from feeling very much a part of everything that's going on around me and everyone that's going on around me. I think our society is structured in a way that makes people feel alone, and that we're separate, that we're not a part of one another, but we're here, we're sharing space. I'm looking into your eyes. Wherever you come from, we've landed here in this moment somehow, and that's fascinating to me. All the people in the world, we landed here today. Our paths led us here. That is happening around you every single day. Isn't that enough to be fascinated by? So that's what drives me.
Now, you are a change maker across society, I think is fair to say. And in so many interviews you do, people ask you for your assessment of progress and diversity in either Hollywood or society at large.
What do I say?
Well, I think you have said in the more recent interviews that there's been a lot of conversation, and maybe it's at least good that we're opening these conversations. But I wanted to ask you, are you tired of being the chief progress report administrator?
I am. It's exhausting, and I really think that these are questions that people need to be answering for themselves. We all are a part of this. Don't ask me about what progress is being made. What progress do you feel is being made? Do you see enough? Do you see places where we can all improve? So it's everyone. Everyone has their opinion, but for me, that question is I think it's the wrong question. I don't think it is. Are we done yet? Did we make diversity? You know what I mean? I think it is. How do you feel? Do you feel connected? Do you feel that everyone is included? Have we gotten there yet? How can we all contribute to that? And what is the part that you play in it? These are the questions that I'd like to hear more often, that I don't.
You anticipated my next question. I was going to ask you, what do you wish people asked you? So I'm going to end with two fun questions.
Okay.
Because we had another member of the 50 over 50 say there should be a 50 over 50 book club. So what are you reading right now?
I'm reading a book called The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is a book about a woman that spans her whole life. And it's really interesting to read this book from this woman, and you see her as a teenager until she's, in her elder years. And it's fascinating to kind of watch the journey of a woman through her whole life through this very sassy book with lots of romance and intrigue. Have you read that book?
I loved that book.
I like that book.
I like to read a lot. You must read a ton, though.
I do.
How fast do you read?
I read pretty fast, but the problem is I'm reading and I'm thinking, is this a movie? Could this be a movie? Would this be in the movie? Almost every conversation, I'm having a conversation with someone and I'm thinking, could you be a movie? Or I'll be talking to someone and someone will say something interesting and I'll be in the conversation and all I want to do is take my phone and write down what they said, because people say great lines of dialogue. I just want to, sometimes I'll be looking at a person and say, remember that. Just trying to remember the line in my head. By the time I'm done with the conversation, I've forgotten the line. But yes, I feel like, there's stories all around us. And they just ignite my imagination all the time. And so I don't even have to look for them. They're just there.
Well, we are better off for you finding them and telling them. So Ava DuVernay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.